Hello and welcome to My Blue Heaven. I'm back. I've had a bit of a break. I'm refreshed. Monday the 28th is the 2022 AFL National Draft, which is always an interesting time of the year. But I'm not going to even pretend to know what I'm talking about in that space. I've got no idea. Other than reading some draft sort of profiles here and there, I haven't seen these kids play that are coming through the system. I've got no idea, so I'm not going to pretend. I'm more interested over the next sort of few episodes in the history of the draft. And right back to 1986, which is considered the first of the modern drafts. I didn't realise it was a VFL draft in both 1981 and 82. But we talk about 1986 as the first, given that the West Coast Eagles and the Brisbane Bears came into the competition in 1987. So I'm going to go and concentrate just on the top 10 draft picks in that time. So today I'm going to look at pick number 10 and try and find the best ever pick number 10, and then so on, until I get the My Blue Heaven top 10 draft picks since 1986. There's no doubt that some clubs took a lot longer, including our club Carlton, to invest properly in the draft system. And just going through some of the names here, there's a few hit and misses even in the top 10, particularly early. And it'd be interesting to see, which out of the top 10 draft picks is the best. Which pick is the best? Is it pick number 10? Is it pick number 1? Is it pick number 5? We're just going to have to wait and see. So today I'm going to reveal who is the best ever pick number 10. Okay, let's start. These are the not so notable players mentions, okay? And no disrespect here at all. All these guys have been drafted to a football club, and most of these have played a little bit of football, okay? And I'm sure really, really good players in their own right to even get drafted. So we go right back to the first ever draft, 1986. The first ever pick number 10 was John Brincotter, picked up by the Sydney Swans. It was from Baruga, played just the 5 games, not quite sure. Maybe you know what happened to John Brincotter. 1987, the following year, Michael Parsons, another player picked up by Sydney. He was a basketballer from Tasmania turned footballer. Played just the 25 games. 1988, actually a former Carlton under-19 and reserves player, Ruckman, was picked up by the West Coast Eagles with pick number 10. He played 4 games. 1989, we had our first zero gamer, which was Daryl Groves, picked up by Collingwood from Maryborough. 1990, we had David Ogg from the Brisbane Football Club, their first ever pick. Pick 10, sorry. He played just the 9 games. He was from Swan Districts. He did play in the Brisbane Lions or the Brisbane Bears 1991 Reserve Premiership. I think that may have been under Rodney Rocket Eade. Premiership. Interesting, though, that the Lions actually gave away Darren Jarman to Hawthorn for that pick number 10. Yeah, that didn't turn out too well for the Brisbane Bears because Darren Jarman was an absolute superstar. 1991, Andrew Lamprell, picked up by Melbourne, 36 games. He was from Hobart. Brett Chalmers was actually fined $30,000 for draft tampering. Collingwood picked him up, didn't want to play there, ended up playing at Adelaide and Port Adelaide, 75 games, 50 with Adelaide and 25 for Port. Trent Orman-Allen, picked up by Melbourne, played 50 games, picked up by Melbourne, went to Adelaide, missed the Adelaide 1997 grand final because he had glandular fever after playing in the elimination and semi-final. 1998, Brandon Hill, from the West Coast Eagles, key position defender from WA. He was delisted after 2 seasons without playing a game. 2002, we go to Jason Laycock, Big fella, big key position player, played a little bit up forward and in the ruck, played a few good games for the Bombers. Never quite reached the heights, so 58 games. Riley Dunn, another disappointment. Fremantle picked him up just the 8 games in 2003. Chris Egan, Indigenous player from Shepparton. He played the 27 games for Collingwood. He was actually the nephew of Phil Egan, who played a lot of football for the Richmond Football Club, and also Lully Bamblett, who was a really good player for Footscray. 2005, Marcus Drum played 22 games for Fremantle, was delisted, ended up going to Geelong where he didn't play a game. Daniel Gorringe, who is everywhere. If you follow Instagram and a few other things as well. I think he does some MC work for the Carlton Football Club. Pick number 10 for the Gold Coast Suns in 2010. Played a few games at the Suns, came to Carlton, played 26 games overall. Liam Sumner, pick number 10 for the Giants in 2011. Played some football at the Giants, played some football at Carlton, but only 32 games overall. The much publicised, I suppose, Nathan Freeman in regards to his body. Hamstring after hamstring injury at Collingwood. Picked up in pick number 10 in 2013. And didn't play a game at the Pies, delisted, spent a lot of time in the VFL. Then St Kilda gave him a chance, ended up playing 2 games for them. And then in 2014, the Cats drafted Nakai Cockatoo with pick number 10. Another player who suffered a lot of injuries at the Cats, ended up going to the Brisbane where he still is. He's played 49 games, but has never quite reached the heights as a top 10 draft pick. Okay, so they're the not-so-notable players. Let's go to the notable mentions. All right, so I reckon the first one was 1994. And a player I really rated, very clever, was Blake Caracella. Okay, Essendon, Brisbane, Collingwood, and tragically his career was cut short when he hurt his neck. Really nasty injury when he was playing for the Pies. But he was a 2-time premiership player. Played in 1 premiership at the Bombers, then played in another premiership at the Brisbane Lions. Great effort, 187 games. He was a real goal sneak as well. Very good player. Simon Prestigiacomo, the Dower defender from the Pies. Picked up in 1995, ended up playing 233 really serviceable games for Collingwood. Missed out on the 2010 premiership. And in the end, he was such a good clubman that the Pies give his jumper, he wore the number 35 to their first round draft pick every year, and that's become a tradition. An absolute superstar, Nathan Brown. I'm talking about the Nathan Brown who was drafted to the Western Bulldogs with pick number 10 in 1996 and ended up going to Richmond. And another player who was cut short, really, when he severely broke his leg, ended up playing 219 games and kicked 349 goals and was a 2-time All-Australian player. Could he play? He was an absolute ripper. Shane O'Brien, a little bit unheralded. Brisbane Lions got him with pick number 10 in 1997, 246 games. A few of those at Brisbane, but played most of his football at the Collingwood Football Club. When he was traded there. Luke McFarlane, first drafted by Hawthorn in 1999, then went to Fremantle. Really good player. All-Australian in 2012, 256 games, probably remembered as a full back, but did play a lot of football forward early in his career, kicked 115 goals. A few more notable mentions. Jordan McMahon, really clever player, drafted in 2000, picked number 10 by the Western Bulldogs, ended up going to Richmond, 148 games, and he was remembered for kicking a goal after the siren for Richmond against Melbourne. And it was one of those sort of dicey situations where I think Melbourne were caught for tanking in that period of time. I distinctly remember that goal after the siren. 2001, Sam Power, the brother of Luke, Western Bulldogs drafted him with pick number 10. Ended up playing really good football at North Melbourne, 123 games. He's now the current Western Bulldogs list manager. The other Nathan Brown, the big key defender who played in the 2010 Premiership on Nick Revolt for the Collingwood Football Club. He was drafted in 2006, then went to St Kilda, 187 games, and as I mentioned, that Premiership in 2010. Phil Davis, Adelaide initially in 2008, but known as the co-captain of the GWS Giants, still playing 192 games, had some injuries. Was a co-captain between 2012 and 2009. Jakey Melksham, who's just signed a one-year deal for the Melbourne Football Club. He started off at Essendon in 2009, played 168 games he's played 208 games overall, 168 goals. He's on track to play 100 games at two clubs. This is a pretty fine effort. Joe Danaher, 151 games, 276 goals, pick number 10 in 2012 for the Bombers, now finds himself at the Brisbane Lions, All-Australian in 2017, and Essendon best and fairest in 2017. And another player that's had a lot of injuries, and Big Harry Mackay. Only played the 86 games, but he's a notable mention. 174 goals, All-Australian already, and Coleman medalist in 2021. So they're the notable mentions. Just quickly, the newbies they haven't played enough football yet to get a really good gauge. So Jack Bowes, 2006, Gold Coast Suns, now finds his way to the Geelong Football Club. Lockie O'Brien, 2017, still at the Blues. Nick Blakey, played in a grand final this year, 2018. Tom Green looks to be a really good prospect for the Giants, 2019. Zach Reed, 220 for the Essendon Football Club. That pick, number 10, was actually in exchange for Adam Saad, who went to Carlton, and Neil Aramis was pick number 10 for the Fremantle Football Club last year. But after all that, the best number 10 in the history of the VFL/AFL National Draft is Patrick Dangerfield in 2007, picked up by the Adelaide Football Club. And what a resume it is. And he could quite possibly be the best ever, okay, as we go through the top 10 draft picks. Let's have a look. 303 games. 154 of those with the Adelaide Football Club, 149 of those with the Geelong Football Club. So he's going to play 150 games at two football clubs. It's an amazing effort. 316 goals, pretty much as a midfielder. Premiership now added. That was the thing. He needed to add that to that resume, and he did this year. So 2022 Premiership player. Gary Ayres medalist. What a great thing to have. You know, big game performer in finals, had a great final series in 2022. We know he won the Brownlow in 2016. Lee Matthews Trophy in 2016. AFL Coaches Association Player of the Year in 2016. 8 times All-Australian. Adelaide Best and Fairest in 2015, and Geelong Best and Fairest winner 3. Patrick Dangerfield, the best ever, pick number 10. Pick number 9, shortly. Catch you soon.